unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. A quick update from my black cat Tomato. He is doing just fine. It's me and him. My girlfriend went to Miami for a bachelorette. We be snuggling a lot. All right, for you people who hate cats, let me just tell you about tonight's show. With the escalating tariff tension between the US and Canada, let's take an unbiased look. A look at the facts without political opinion. I will speak to a business owner here in the United States. We are both outsiders. I'm Canadian, he's Dutch. And he did a simple experiment on the American public. He simply asked consumers, would they rather a product that's a little more expensive, that's American-made because of the tariffs, or something made in China for cheaper? The results? People do not put their money where their mouth is. Nobody bought the more expensive product. We'll dig into that in about 15 minutes' time. What would you do? Then we'll give a history of alien abductions and go over the most famous case. One so wild, a movie was made from it. A movie that gave me nightmares as a kid. That'll be on Conspiracy Corner halfway through the hour. That's just some of tonight's show. Tony 5 from London, England is going to be here later on. Let's dive in, though. And in news that adds a wrinkle to the age-old mysterious question, what's inside the teddy bear? Is it just cotton stuffing or something more? Authorities in Edison, New Jersey just raided a massage parlor and found $600,000 in cash inside a giant stuffed bear. Allegedly. I don't know why, but I just work in allegedly every now and again to not get sued. But back to the story. 600 G's stuffed in a teddy bear, not like a nightgown, is, in my opinion, an answer to the question, what do you get the money launderer who has everything? Allegedly. The massage parlor is called Bliss Spa, which sounds like it might be where your aunt goes for a facial and your uncle goes for, well, very different reasons. Allegedly. Sorry, uncle. And after a year-long sting, because it takes 365 days to figure out this place might be sketchy, cops seized over $750,000 in cash and assets, including a couple fancy watches and a nice car. You know, just your standard wellness spa perks. Of course, they seized the teddy bear, which, by the way, like I said, was described as giant, which raises the question, how big does a bear have to be before it's considered suspicious in a massage parlor? I mean, if your store has a teddy bear that's big enough that it can make change, and you're not selling kids' toys, you might not be a legitimate business, allegedly. The spa's manager was arrested and charged with everything from money laundering to running a house of prostitution, which is a lot of hats to wear for someone allegedly running a business where nobody's supposed to be wearing any, because people take their hats off when they get a massage, probably. The manager, she's currently being held without bail, which is ironic because she had plenty of cash to make that bail. She just needed a seam ripper. Oh, and for the cash not to have been seized. But I digress. 4 other women associated with the spa were charged and released with summonses, which I'm told in New Jersey is like getting a parking ticket. Now, the spa, it was reported, in a shocking twist, also had multiple health code violations. Alleged prostitution, health code violations, those two things are a subtle way of telling patrons, don't touch anything and definitely don't sit down. Authorities are calling this the New Jersey Township's biggest asset seizure ever. And I'm proud of the town, honestly. You know you've really made it as a small town when your biggest crime bust involves a stuffed bear with a higher net worth than most of your residents. And their mayor, of course, is taking a victory lap, because why not? The mayor says their crackdown on sketchy spas is now a statewide model. I imagine the municipal slogan might be changed to, "Welcome to Edison. We shut down 19 massage parlors last year." Now, the investigation is still ongoing, and police are asking anyone with information to contact their vice unit. Vice unit. Aptly named. There were a lot of actual vices found. Allegedly. In conclusion, folks, always remember to hug your teddy bears tight. You never know what secrets they're hiding. Or how much you could get for one on the black market. Allegedly? And in news that further adds fuel to the dumpster fire that is the pineapple on pizza debate, the CEO of WordPress, popular blogging software, has decided that if you want to use the free open source blogging platform, you now have to admit, publicly, digitally, with your whole heart, that pineapple on pizza is delicious. This is real. This is happening. I miss when software just wanted you to confirm that you weren't a robot. Now it wants to know if you're a pizza and fruit trader. Here's how it goes. When you try to log into WordPress, your blogging suite, it now shows you a checkbox that says, pineapple is delicious on pizza. If you don't check it, if you don't click it, it doesn't just block you, it gaslights you. You get like a vague error that you've made a mistake, which frankly, you have. Or at least WordPress has. I mean, I don't have strong opinions on pineapple on pizza, but people do. And I don't think it's that good. I just don't think it's that bad. But the debate rages on. Now, before you think this is just a charming quirk from a man, the CEO of WordPress, with a sweet fruit tooth and a grudge, let's zoom out. This comes right after a judge told the CEO to remove a much prettier checkbox. One that made users swear that they weren't affiliated with WordPress's rival, WP Engine, another company, which is invasive. It's like being asked to swear that you've never dated your CEO's ex before entering a grocery store. When WordPress's competitor sued, the court was not amused. They ordered WordPress to take that checkbox down. So naturally, they just replaced it with a new checkbox. Perhaps a more controversial checkbox. A checkbox wrapped in mozzarella, a sweet and tart fruit, and passive aggression. It's like he took off his no WordPress competition shirt and put on a I'm gonna troll the world apron. A former WordPress software contributor saw this and basically said, this smells like a workaround, which is polite tech speak for this man is trolling the judicial system with pizza opinions. Now, the CEO in question of WordPress, his whole vibe lately is less tech visionary and more a billionaire on a revenge kick. He's called the competitor he tried to get everyone to say they wouldn't use a cancer, which is the kind of language you might expect from a disgruntled Facebook user, but not someone who runs a blog platform used by half the internet. Now, back to that lawsuit, their competitor, WP Engine, sent a cease and desist, to which WordPress responded with their own cease and desist, like two nerdy wizards dueling with legal scrolls. It's a dysfunctional grown-up slap fight, but with lawyers and no slaps. By October of last, things got nuclear. And that's when a judge stepped in and said, enough with the checkbox feuds. That's when the CEO of WordPress, instead of chilling out like a normal adult, posted on X, formerly Twitter, currently a place where billionaires embarrass themselves, that he was disgusted by his competitor, WP Engine. He called the court intervening a dangerous precedent, as though letting someone use a login button is equivalent to storming the Bastille. The WordPress CEO was so done around this point, he offered employees $30,000 or 6 months' salary, whatever was higher, to leave. And a lot of employees took him up on that offer. They said thank you, they walked out, presumably into the loving arms of another tech company. Now, some may say this CEO is being overly dramatic. Some may say he's waging a personal vendetta wrapped in pepperoni, pineapple, and contempt. But I say this, he's innovating. He's pioneering the future of software access by making it conditional on food opinions. Next up, click here to agree that artichokes ruin everything, including marriages. That's my suggestion. I don't like artichokes. Ultimately, the real question here isn't whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It's an age-old debate. But it's whether billionaires should be allowed to turn their petty grudges into court proceedings and then force the rest of us to participate through login screens. But hey, if one can give out a free software blog platform, insult a competitor, and feel morally superior about their pizza taste, that's Silicon Valley energy. Just don't ask me to click raisins are good in potato salad. That's where I draw the line. Up next, would U.S. consumers, when given the option to buy foreign or products made within their country for a little more cash, what would they do? The answer will either completely surprise or completely disappoint you. That on the other side of the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
With the tariff war, with the United States raising tariffs, there's a lot of talk about whether people will buy American-made products, even if they cost more. But what happens when people say that versus what they do? I'm here with someone who did an interesting experiment. He is the CEO and co-founder of filtered showerhead company Afina. His name is Ramon van Meer. And he polled people. He asked them the following. Would you buy something American-made versus foreign-made if it just cost a little or maybe a lot more? Ramon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like researchers, scientists, people at universities, people who publish in journals, they look into this stuff, but it takes them forever. And what I like about you is you just kind of did it. You're the founder of a company and you just were curious about how this would all work. So let's start with your experiment. How did you design it and what were you hoping to learn about it?
Yes. And, to your point, there's a lot of surveys or people asking questions or asking opinions. And in my opinion, those are not real data sets. A lot of people will say something. They will say, for example, yes, I will buy made in the USA, even though it's more expensive. But I was very curious, will have the same opinion when they have to pull out the credit cards if it's indeed more expensive.
Will people put their money where their mouth is essentially the question you're asking.
Exactly. And you'll be surprised how different that it is if you survey versus a real actual, real life test. So created a landing page where our shower heads was listed, the same shower heads. The only difference is you can choose between made in the USA version or made in China version. So again, same products and quality. The only difference is where it's quote unquote is made and the price. And people can choose the color of the shower head and then have to choose the US version or the China version.
You did something even more than that. In the Made in USA block targeted at American customers, you give a little uplifting thing like there are tariffs, but we've partnered with a small manufacturer, which is ostensibly what people want to see, a small business, producing things within the country. I don't know that for fact, but given media narratives, that's what people want to be seeing. So not only did you just give them the option, you kind of gave them like a little bit of an uplifting explanation with it. So you'd think that people would be primed to spend the extra $100, $110 on this shower head, wouldn't you?
Yes. I thought I would sell more of the more expensive US because of that sentiment of it's made in the US, it's a small manufacturer. We're a small business, right? So it fits all, the narrative that is out there on online of people saying that they would support made in the US.
It's interesting you and I discussing this because we're both kind of like outsiders in the US. You're Dutch, I'm Canadian. We both live here. We see what people say. And now we're seeing what people do. You had 25,000 real visitors. This wasn't like, some lab testing things in an economics department at a university asking them questions, but it would look nothing like what a real shopping cart would be on a website. You had 25,000 real visitors. What did people do when presented with an option made in Asia for $129 for a nice shower head or made in the USA with this nice description priced at $239, at $110 more? What did people do? What did these 25,000 visitors do?
Yes, you'll be surprised or not surprised, but we sold 585 or 84 shower heads made in China, so close to 600 China versions, and then we sold 0 of the made in the USA. Like we didn't sell any.
It's the end of the republic. No, I'm kidding. That's a conversation for another day. What went through your mind when you saw those results?
It was one of these moments of like, I'm not surprised and surprised. By what I mean by that is my assumption was already that people will opt in what is cheaper. People love discounts. People love paying as least amount as possible. So I was already expecting that the cheaper version would quote unquote win, but I was not expecting none or zero of the made in the USA versions to be sold. So and to your point, like this was not a test with, 6, shoppers or 2 shoppers, right? Like this was 25,000 people. We sold almost 600 of one version. So it was, the results are very telling.
We often hear that consumers want to support products made in their own country. For Americans, American-made products. Do you think they're lying? Do you think they're unrealistic? Do you think economic times are hard enough that they just don't care? I know you didn't necessarily ask people, but why do you think this is happening?
Well, I do think that people care until a certain dollar amount. So this is an assumption, I've not tested it, but if the price difference between the two was more, instead of $100+, maybe it was $10 or $20, the results will probably have been different. So I think people care until a certain dollar amount. And it's the same with sustainability products, I think, that often are more expensive, or organic produce, that people, if it's more or less the same, yes, it's a great benefit, let's go opt it. But if it's too much of a price difference, people will just still choose for the cheaper option.
It's such an interesting example, like a nice shower head, like a specialist shower head, because it's a very tangible product. It's a specialty item. You're ostensibly a small or medium-sized business. Walk us through the costs of making something like what you sell in the U.S. versus outsourcing it to China. What's behind that price jump?
Yeah, the big problem is there is not a factory at the moment that makes filtered shower heads.
Wait, I thought they opened up 50 across the whole country. I'm kidding. It's so
overnight.
It's probably, how do you make a medium run of products that are highly specialized? You don't have the money to build a whole plant with 1,000 employees and
correct,
have supply chains and all that.
Yes. So, and there isn't, and this is a good point what you make, there isn't a specialty factory that makes it. So if I wanted to make it here, I would have to work with 3 to 4 different manufacturing specialties. Like one will do the injection molding. The other one can, then I have to ship it to a different one that can do the plating. Then another one that does the filters. So versus in other countries, they do have like specialty factories already that makes exactly what we're needing. So just the cost of working with 3-4 different factories and shipping, the inventory between all these, just the shipping and the freight alone is already very, very expensive. So that's the big problem. That we cannot, it's not sustainable to do it here.
Like if it was just an issue of labor, paying laborers in a certain country versus paying them higher rates, I imagine, in the United States, it would be a small amount, but it's all these other factors compounded, I think, that really make really high price jumps that would shock consumers.
Yes, exactly.
And so you're not able to do it with that $10 jump. And so even though you might want to test what consumers would do if they were just to pay $10 more, in reality, businesses like you can't offer an American-made product that's only $10 more or a small percentage more.
No.
Do you think this experience has made you more cynical about what people say versus what they do, or maybe just a little more curious?
No, I've always had I've been selling stuff online for many years, and in the beginning, I always made the mistake of if I make this button red, probably it will sell more, right? Like I made assumptions that I put on potential shoppers, like, this is ugly. This, if I change this, we will sell more of it. And I'm often wrong. And so I've learned the hard way to always test. And test by testing meaning not asking or a survey, but really like with the credit cards. That's the real test. Are people paying, buying X more because, for whatever reason. So I'm always try to be data-driven decision-making.
Ramon van Meer is the CEO and founder of filtered showerhead company Afina. Ramon, thanks for sharing this with me. I've really enjoyed the chat.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having me again.
After the break, a topic perfect for this late night hour, a history of alien abductions, and some of them will surprise you. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's the moment you've been waiting for. Alien abductions and their otherworldly, or perhaps not, explanations. We will cover here with Nathan Radke on Conspiracy Corner. Nathan is a cultural history professor, yes. He said as he screwed up the introduction, but he's also a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber Polytechnic in Toronto, Canada. Nathan, welcome in, and happy alien to you. What an introduction.
Nailed it as always. You're the goat. You're the intro goat.
I get in my own head when I introduce you. I feel like they're all bad now. And then I always say, what an introduction. It's like, I promise I've done good introductions for other people. It just doesn't seem that way.
Well, in that case, I'm honored.
Okay. Alien abductions. These are things that pop up in history so much after the first few get reported, after the first few UFO sightings get reported. Were the original ones disinformation, misinformation campaigns by like the Air Force in the US? Maybe. But it seems like, I don't know, was it the 40s, the 50s, the 60s? It's just, they come out of nowhere and then a lot of people start claiming it's happening to them.
Yeah, and here's the classic story. You're in bed, it's late at night, suddenly you become aware that you aren't alone. And then out of the shadows, terrifying beings emerge, long fingers, large heads, big oval-shaped eyes. You try to scream, you try to fight back, yet you can't. They're using some kind of like paralysis ray on you. And they communicate with you, but they're not moving their lipless alien mouths. They're somehow beaming thoughts directly into your head. And you're taken from your bed. And instead, you find yourself on some sort of examination table surrounded by strange instruments and more of those ominous gray aliens. And you can feel yourself getting experimented on, maybe having implants put in your body, maybe a little probing.
Can't forget the probing. Well, you're skimming over the probing, Nathan. Probing's an important part.
You got to dive into the probing.
Got to probe.
And then just as your terror seems about ready to drive you mad, you can't take it anymore, you pass out, you find yourself back in your bed again. And the aliens have vanished without a trace. And this is the classic alien abduction story.
We got telepathy. We got, I'm about to use a big word, Nathan. Telekinesis.
There we go.
Which is when, movement of object or things using the mind. We've got tables. We've got maybe in a strange room, maybe removed from your room in a strange place. We got lights. We got probing. You can't forget the probing.
Can't forget the probing. And you've got terror.
Terror.
You've got absolute terror. Now, according to recent studies, about 2% of Americans claim to have been abducted by aliens.
When you consider the high percentage of Americans who do things that are upsetting, I'm not surprised. But also 2%, that's like 1 in 50 people. I know 50 people.
Yeah.
Does that mean one of them, or are they all are they all living in groups?
Have you asked them?
I have not asked them about abductions or probing, because I would not forget the probing.
Well, no, you can't forget the probing. You should ask those 50 people. It hasn't been hard for me to find people in my studies that think that they have been kidnapped by aliens. And some of them are scammers, obviously. But for others, I think they're telling me the truth. I believe the stories that they tell me. And those stories tend to be very similar and also similar to the one I just described. But the thing is, while I do believe they're telling me the truth, I don't think they're lying. I think that they experienced what they're describing. That doesn't mean I think that they were necessarily kidnapped by aliens, because sometimes we can be telling the truth as we perceive it,
sure,
but we're perceiving things wrong.
These are sincerely held beliefs. Like these individuals do not believe they are lying,
and they have experienced something.
But you defer to maybe some other more worldly explanation, in most cases, at least.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. There's a bunch of issues. One, we don't have direct access to the outside world. We perceive through our senses, and those can be fooled easily. And we filter those flawed perceptions through the collection of beliefs that make up our worldview. So like a kid who believes in Santa Claus sees Christmas morning very differently than an adult does. And secondly, the idea of alien abduction has been well established in our culture since the late 1960s, like TV shows, Outer Limits, Twilight Zone. There was a really famous UFO abduction case in the late 60s, the Betty and Barney Hill incident. And that had been well publicized in the press, had a best-selling book written about it, had a TV movie made of it. So the fact that so many abduction stories are similar, it could be because all these people are really getting abducted by aliens and aliens keep doing it in the same way, or it could just be because our culture has formed an idea of what an alien abduction looks like. But ideas can get sticky in our society. For example, what does Humpty Dumpty look like?
Oh my goodness. He sat on a hill.
On a wall.
On a wall. I'm running on empty. I think it's like a Mandela effect thing, which is a conversation for another day. But I think people think he's an egg.
Yeah, exactly. You talk to anybody and they say, sure, Humpty Dumpty is an egg. And then you go through the poem and you realize there is nothing in the entire poem about him being an egg. That's just an idea that got sticky in our society, probably because of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. And then that just became the obvious truth. This is what Humpty Dumpty is. And so now, even if you ask somebody who has never been kidnapped by an alien, describe an alien abduction, they're going to describe the same thing that the people who do think they've been abducted describe. That's just the idea in our society of what an alien abduction looks like.
So one read is that, well, it happens predominantly, a lot of it happens in the 1960s once these things get reported a bit by sensationalist news outlets and TV shows and things like this, books. There's no surprise that people start having these experiences after the media reports it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it sort of gets seated in their subconscious, and if they have a strange experience, they fill in the gaps by explaining it to themselves this way. Another read is that in the 1960s is when we first started getting visited, Nathan. Huh?
I mean, also entirely possible. But the problem is that story that I've told of what the alien abduction feels like, there's another explanation for that experience that doesn't require alien intervention. Because, of course, that story also describes what it feels like to have sleep paralysis.
How do you explain the probing? Because you're forgetting the probing here.
Well, I mean, you can't forget the probing. But the thing about, have you ever had sleep paralysis?
No. Describe it to me.
Okay, so it's absolutely terrifying. It's the most frightened I've ever been. So what happens is about 30% of people experience this at some point in their life. Some of your listeners have experienced it. Some of them have experienced it without knowing what it was. It occurs when you get trapped between stages of sleep and wakefulness because your body paralyzes. I mean, your body is paralyzed when you are dreaming, so you don't act out your dreams and hurt yourself. It'd be a disaster. But sometimes your brain wakes up, but the paralysis hasn't worn off yet. And that's what causes this. And while it's occurring, feelings of panic are common, as are visual hallucinations and confusion. Interestingly, a lot of people see the same thing. They see a guy in a wide-brimmed hat lurking at the bottom of their bed.
What?
I'm serious. He's called the Hat Man.
The Hat Man?
And I've seen the Hat Man myself, and interestingly...
You've met the Hat Man?
I've met the Hat Man, and I met the Hat Man before I knew what sleep paralysis was, and before I had heard anybody else describing him.
It's like I was once prescribed a sleep medication, and I don't know why they prescribe this to people because like 1 in 20, some high number, don't fall asleep and they start hallucinating.
Right.
The medication's called Ambien.
Oh boy. Yeah, there's been some wild side effects from that one. I
hallucinated when I took it. I only ever took it once. I told my therapist, she took me off it, but it's called seeing the Ambien walrus. You know, and what the walrus is to Ambien hallucinations, the wide brim hat man is to sleep paralysis hallucinations.
Exactly.
And if the wide brim hat man is a pervert, that explains the probing.
You can't forget about the probing. And so that's the thing. If you are in a society that believes in demons, you have sleep paralysis, you experience a demon attack. If you are in a society that believes in ghosts, you experience sleep paralysis as a ghost attack. And if it's the 1960s or 70s or 80s or 90s or whenever, and there have been TV shows and movies and newspaper stories about alien abduction, of course you're going to experience it like an alien abduction.
So if you're primed to believe some tale that bad things happen to you while you're sleeping, whatever you're primed to believe is a likely hallucination you'd have during sleep paralysis.
And it's totally understandable because of just how terrifying this experience is. I'm not kidding. It was the most frightened I've ever been. It felt like I was battling for my life.
All right, when we come back, we will not forget about the probing as we discuss the Travis Walton story, perhaps the most famous account of an alien abduction. It's terrifying. A movie was made from it. We're here with Nathan Radke. It's Conspiracy Corner. Will you get abducted or will you stay with us to find out what happened to Travis Walton? Up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
It's Conspiracy Corner. We are discussing alien abductions and their otherworldly, or perhaps not, explanations. I will get an introduction for our next guest right one of these days. His name is Nathan Radke. He's a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber College. We are here. It is Conspiracy Corner. I think I already said that. Nathan, welcome.
You can't say it enough.
Man, oh man, I'm the best in the biz. Okay, the Travis Walton story. I think some of us will know this very famous alien abduction, not by name, but by story. It's one that's been told. It was portrayed in a movie that scared the crap out of me in the 90s when I was a kid. Who was Travis Walton?
All right, so November 5th, 1975 in Arizona. There's a logging crew coming back from the worksite when there's a light spotted from the forest. Now, Travis Walton, who is one of the crewmen, he walks out into the direction of the light when suddenly the light aims itself at him and the rest of the crew freaks out, takes off, leaves him there. Now, eventually they come back and he's gone. In fact, he's missing for an entire week, during which time there's search parties looking for him. The police are suspecting that maybe the crew had chainsaw murdered him.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, because that's how it goes out there in the forest. But then on November 12th, a week later, he calls his sister from a phone booth. And when he was picked up, he had a harrowing story to tell. Because after being struck by the beam, he claims he lost consciousness and that he woke up in an examination room surrounded by short, hairless alien creatures. Now, what he says is that he fought back against them because he didn't want the probing.
No, you don't want the probing.
No, you can't forget about the probing.
And these aliens certainly did not. I saw that movie, Fire in the Sky. Did I ruin? Were you crescendoing to that?
No, that's good. Keep going.
As a kid, and they definitely did probing in that movie.
Yeah, you saw that when you were too young and basically scarred you for some time, right?
Yeah, my older brother forced me to watch it even though I was crying and screaming, and it was fine. I was able to sleep restfully without being terrified of aliens maybe 20 years later.
And you're a perfectly well-adjusted adult, so everything's okay.
It's actually the short version of how I ended up in radio, but please go on.
So he fights back against the aliens, and then apparently another human comes into the room wearing a space helmet. And then that human brings Walton out of the examination room into another room where they put this kind of gas mask over his face, at which point he blacks out again, and then he finds himself days later walking along a country road. And that's the story. And what we know for sure is that he was gone for 7 days. And when he showed up, he was a little bit disheveled and a little bit beat up.
I didn't realize a human was involved. Was this like someone who was betraying the human race and collaborating with the aliens?
I mean, it could be some kind of human collaborator. It could be that aliens look like humans. I mean, there's all sorts of explanations. Of course, in the 1950s and 60s, if you were an alien on TV, because of the limitations of makeup and special effects, aliens on TV in the 50s and 60s tended to look like humans, which could also be an explanation for it. Now, they did an investigation on this, obviously. The police were involved, and both Walton and the rest of the crew took lie detector tests, which had kind of mixed results. Although, I mean, lie detectors are flawed instruments at best anyway. There's been a lot of criticisms of the way that these particular ones were conducted, and so I don't know what we can get from that. But there are a lot of reasons why we should be suspicious of Walton's story. One, there were discrepancies between his story and the crew members. Again, not that surprising. There's lots of issues with eyewitness testimony. But when you start to look into Walton's past, things start to get a little bit more sus. For example, it was well established that both he and his family all had an interest in UFOs and alien abductions before this incident happened. The TV movie about the Betty and Barney Hill incident aired 2 weeks before this alleged incident, and Walton watched it and expressed an interest in getting abducted by a flying saucer. The National Enquirer, the paper of record, the grand old lady,
yes,
had an offer of thousands of dollars to anyone who had evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. And of course, Walton sold his story to the Enquirer. But most damning, the work crew had a contract with the US government. And they had fallen far behind schedule, and they were unlikely to be able to fulfill that contract, which meant that they would have had to repay the government for the contract money unless there was some sort of act of God which prevented them from being able to finish.
Wow. So it's not looking good for whether the story was true or not.
No, it's not looking good at all. And I mean, despite all of this, Walton was able to write a book about these alleged experiences, turned into that 1993 movie, which had no effect on you and didn't scar you a little bit, called Fire in the Sky.
Not even. I was totally able to sleep fine without being worried about being abducted the next, maybe 20 years later, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't forget about the probing. And so this is where it gets kind of interesting. So Walton's story, probably, almost certainly a lie in order to get out of the government contract. And it was almost certainly influenced by that TV movie about Betty and Barney Hill. And then it turns into a story, which then gets turned into its own movie. And then that movie goes on to influence what people think alien abductions look like. And it shows you that kind of interesting feedback loop in our culture and how these ideas start to form and like turn into the story that we recognize.
And that feedback loop we were discussing earlier is sleep paralysis. It's kind of a terrifying experience where you can't get up, you're half asleep. It happens to 30% of adults at one point in their life, and you hallucinate. And if you're primed to believe a certain thing, that might be what you explain it with. You met the man with the wide brim hat. After seeing movies and hearing of accounts like this, people think they're abducted. And these are sincerely held beliefs. Like,
I mean, sometimes they are. A lot of the people that I've talked to, I'm sure that they believe that they've been kidnapped by aliens. But then you also have people like Walton who are trying to take advantage of the belief that's existing in our society, in this case, in a pretty obvious way, in order to get some money from the Inquirer, to get out of a government contract, and to sell a book and eventually sell a movie.
I was discussing this with someone on the show earlier the week. Don't be betrayed.
Oh, what? I'm not your only conspiracist?
No. You and I, and you and your colleague Lee, when you come on the show, we really look at it from a conspiratorial angle. This was just like fun alien UFOs. No. But I basically said, I won't accept even compelling evidence like accounts lining up, even if they passed the polygraph, even if he didn't have these motivations of money and fame and a national choir story and the company he was working for not being fined by the government for being late on a contract or having to give back the money. So, and I say this, even when good evidence, according to some people, is presented, like a bunch of people's accounts lining up, I say this, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And if 17 people had a similar account of like, I don't know, a car crashing, I would believe it. But if 17 people, even past polygraphs of alien abductions, that's not enough for me. And this guy said, well, what do you need? A UFO landing on the White House lawn and an alien walking out of it? I'm like, kind of, yeah. I mean, that might be good enough. I would probably think I was drugged that day. But if, the next day I came down from the potential drugging, that might be good enough evidence. But that's really what I need to believe this stuff. I don't know where you stand.
No, I completely agree with you. A lot of the people that I talk to who believe that they've been kidnapped by aliens, the other thing they have in common is that before the experience happened, they had a real interest in it. It's almost like they wanted it to happen. As frightening as it is, I mean, and this raises another question. Would you want to be kidnapped by aliens?
Depends on whether the probing was done
gently, tenderly, lovingly,
with caressing, lovingly.
Yeah, full eye contact the entire time.
Or if it was a rough probing. No, I would not want to be. Mostly because I saw Fire in the Sky in the 90s and I'm still scared.
Right. Whereas, I mean, obviously, I would 100% get kidnapped by aliens. It would be, I mean, for one thing, imagine the radio segment we could do about it afterwards.
True, but I would say to you then, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I probably wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, totally understandably. And we shouldn't believe Walton. One of the crew members who had been supporting him for decades came forward in 2021 and said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to provide any more credibility to Walton or any of his claims. So I think at this point, even though it is probably, except for maybe Betty and Barney Hill, the most famous alien abduction, sadly, for those of us who want to believe in aliens visiting Earth, I think this is definitely one that we have to dismiss as a hoax.
Nathan, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Check out Nathan Radke's podcast, The Uncover Up. You can find that wherever podcasts are downloaded. Nathan Radke is a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber Polytechnic. Up next, our foreign correspondent, Tony Five, with exciting British birthday card news that you won't want to miss because it's stupid. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. The man of the hour, the man of the year, the man of the millennium, the man of...
Just a man.
How long has the universe been around? Yeah, I guess he's
just a man, David. Just a man.
The man.
Dear listener, good evening, David. Good evening, the world, David. And as we reach our pure demographic, to all the people in the Dominican Republic, hello.
Yes, though we have a huge fan base in the DR. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. I'm joined by foreign correspondent in London, England, Tony Five, to do foreign corresponding. Probably.
Sorry, that was the Dominican Republic of Congo, right?
No, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo. How democratic it is, up for debate.
Same difference, David. Dear listener, every time we go on air, David asks me, Tony, do you want the theme song? The answer's always going to be yes. And then he said, but it may not be appropriate. And I'm trying to work out on what possible occasion the theme song that you've all known to grow and love will not be appropriate.
My advice for you tomorrow is to remember this from today. Sometimes we do things on the radio with different introductions, and when we do those things, it calls for a different introduction. Generally, it's the theme song, but if we're giving ourselves advice from yesterday, which is today, tomorrow, then I might want to play an introduction for a little benchmark, or segment we do on the radio called Advice from Your Yesterday Self for Today from Tomorrow or something.
Tomorrow? Yeah. And are ahead of the curve today for yesterday, right?
Yeah. But we're going to get some introduction music for this one. It's Tony's Provincial News. It doesn't have music, so maybe you could just sing an introduction for Tony's Provincial News.
It's Tony's Provincial News.
It's pretty good.
You know what, David? It was off the cuff, and I really like that, but don't check the Billboard Top 100 just yet.
For regulatory purposes, in order for Tony to be classified in broadcasting as a foreign correspondent, he has to bring something of important newsworthiness. How's that for a sentence?
And foreign.
So
recently we had an attack of a hawk. We've had some various issues all around the world in Europe. Today, we've brought it close to home. My home, it's in Exeter, which is a little a county, not far away, maybe 4 or 5 hours away from me. This is front page news, David. What are the odds? Question mark. Now, when you see that, you're thinking, God, something statistically impossible, right? There's something so wild that it deserves its place on the front page of a newspaper. Are you ready, my friend?
Yeah, like if it was the National Enquirer, it'd be like, what are the odds the Queen got abducted by aliens and didn't die? You know, like something sensational.
Correct. An Exeter man receives 5 identical birthday cards.
What are the odds?
And there is a picture, full blown. They've sent a photographer around to this guy's house where he stood there.
I want to know what they're paying that photographer, because whatever it is, it's too much.
And he's got a fireplace with these 5 identical cards for his birthday. I mean, that is this is the absolute definition of a slow news day, right?
I don't know. To me, that's just regular English news.
I love it, and I would love to get this man on the show, and just to find out who sent him those 5, what people in his life sent him those 5 cards. Where did they go? What made them gravitate towards those cards for that guy? Is it because they were on sale? Was there a multi-pack they all handed out to one another and said, well, it's David's birthday, let's just all give him that? Or was it what happened? What are the odds?
How would you, listener, singular intended, how would you, listener, feel if you got 5 of the same birthday cards? I would just find it a slight oddity. I would not reach out to local media for potential reporting.
Well, David, you're not fame hungry. And this obviously is, because like I said, it's front page news. He's so proud of these 5 identical cards. I'm trying to find his name, which hasn't shown it.
Is this how chasing the dragon of international fame and intrigue expresses itself in Exeter, England? Like, this is as good as it gets in terms of fame?
Well, first of all, I haven't seen a dragon for a very long time, my friend. But yes.
No, I mean, that's just as good as it gets. It doesn't get better than that.
I don't know. Like I said, this segment's growing. And so tomorrow there might be somebody else.
It's a callback to yesterday. As good as it gets. This is as good as it gets. You don't remember that joke? I was so proud of that joke.
Oh, really?
What's wrong with you?
No idea.
I was talking about just making coffee in the morning on the show yesterday.
I remember. I'll be honest with you, David. Once we do this show, I really push it back. I kind of have PTSD when I think about it. So I do it and I move it on like removing a plaster. I don't think about it afterwards.
Fair enough. Anyway.
Yeah.
I was making coffee. That was the whole story. And then you're like, this is great content. And I said, this is as good as it gets. And then I said, no, seriously, like this is
as good
as
it
gets.
gets.
It doesn't get better than this. And then I thought, what a great name for a show. Why do we call this thing The Last Show? It should be called It's As Good As It Gets. Anyway, not important. Have you been to Exeter? Is it nice? Is it just a bunch of fields? Like, what's going on?
It's kind of provincial, I would say, kind of Alabama-esque.
Alabama-esque? I don't think there is a British equivalent to Alabama. I just don't.
Do you not think, they only got like sort of the internet maybe 5-10 years ago? Is that sort of place?
Dial-up. They got one modem for the whole town?
Correct. It's that sort, and they've still got the 48K ones where they go beep, that sort of one. You remember?
Wow. You could be a voice actor, you could be a singer, and now you could moonlight as a modem.
David, I am multifaceted, my friend. That means more facets than one, less than 10. Yeah, I speak Latin as well. So tell me about you. How's your day going? Have you had fun? Is everything going well?
I had lunch with a friend today.
Okay. Someone famous?
No. He used to make coffee at the shop down the street from me when I used to live in San Francisco. Now he's moved to New York. And I feel kind of weird because it's like he's coming here and, I'm like, it's an exciting thing ahead of you. But like, he's like, oh, do you know people for that? And I'm like, I don't know. Who would think I am? Who knows? Like, I can't help you.
But it's not like a charity friendship, is it?
No, he's a good guy. We're like legit friends.
A good guy.
Yeah. Once he's established in New York, he's going to be a regular friend. But it's always weird. Like, you live in London. If I moved to London for the first time and I met up with you, I would seem like, oh, he needs a little more time here. Like he doesn't know what's going on yet.
You mean like he's kind of like wet under the ears, like he's really new, fresh off the boat type thing. Okay, that's cool. So are you going to take him out? Are you going to show him the sights?
I don't go out, Tony. What do I do? I don't leave my house.
Why don't you do what you did for me and buy me that, that big Statue of Liberty hat and all of the jackets that says I love New York, so I look like a real New Yorker?
Yeah. And like the finger, like the Yankees finger. Yeah.
I just blended in. Do you remember that? I walked around, I had the Statue of Liberty spikes on my head, I had a big finger, I had the bomber jacket that says I love New York. So everywhere I went, people just thought, oh, this is a general New Yorker. And then when I walked, I went, I'm talking here, I'm walking here. Give me a pizza, a deep dish, geezer.
That's Chicago deep dish, and it's an abomination
same
to
difference.
Pizza.
Are you a thin sliced pizza?
I like a thin, I like a medium, but I don't like a thick.
You don't like a deep
No
dish.
thick.
Are you a folder as well? Do you fold a pizza and eat it?
Yes, but not a lot. Like I like the taste of the cheese on in my mouth, and when you fold it, you're just getting the bread. It's like a cheese sandwich, not as good.
Do you know in England, when you go to a pizza restaurant, they expect you to eat it with knife and fork?
That's obscene.
Did you know that?
That's why Britain failed as an empire right there. It's not because they were decimated after World War II. It's not because of bad political decisions. It's because of that. It's because you eat pizza with a knife and a fork. That's the reason.
Pizza etiquette is what brought down the empire. Is that what you're saying?
It is. You guys were doing great once. I mean, compared to all these countries that you occupied, maybe great isn't the right word, but from like a dominance and world stage perspective, you guys were numero uno. And then you started eating your pizzas with knives and forks, and look what happened.
Do you know, for many years, I thought the Elgin marbles were actual marbles, like the small things that kids play with on the street.
I don't know what that is.
The Elgin marbles are a group of statues belonging to Elgin that we stole, England, the empire stole. So, dear listener, if you want to Google it, and there's a big facet about us stealing stuff from all over the world. We pillaged our way across the world in India and Africa and so on. And I think the Greeks wanted us to give the Elgin marbles back. But for many years, I just thought it was a toy.
I feel like other countries, when they loot antiquities, is that the right word? Antiques from antiquity?
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
And then other countries like modern governments are like, hey, you actually need to give that thing you looted back. Most countries will say yes. England, not always.
Finders keepers, baby.
We'll be back with Tony 5. When we come back, we'll discuss a new concept of Tony's right name, wrong fame. It involves people with unfortunate names, and you're going to love it.
Want to be Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Tony 5.
Welcome back, everybody.
Tony 5.
Don't sing over me, David. Never works.
Tony 5.
Dear listener, as you're well aware, it's all about the name first. So if you don't know, anything else in the world, company, businesses, inventors, they have a product and then they name it. Not us. Not us. We have a name and we try and fit some crap into it.
We'll figure out what the heck Tony 5, foreign correspondent in London, England, is talking about. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. Tony, what are you talking about?
Right. I have a name and a game. Are you ready, David?
I'm so ready.
The name is Right Name, Wrong Fame.
Right name, long... Say it again.
Right name, wrong fame.
Right name, wrong game?
Right name, wrong fame, David. Imagine that there is people in the world, right, who are named after these sort of infamous or famous people. There's going to be multiple Tom Cruises out there, George Clooney's, but there's somebody somewhere probably called Adolf Hitler who isn't Adolf Hitler, who's probably a really nice guy who's married to a Jewish girl. There's probably like another Tom Cruise who isn't into the whole Scientology stuff and basically is like a Mormon. And I just want to meet these people. So it's like the right name, but the wrong fame, David.
There's an episode of Seinfeld where one of the characters is named, what is the name? Is it Jeffrey Dahmer?
Jeffrey Dahmer, yes, the serial killer.
Yeah. Although I don't know if it's Jeffrey Dahmer. It is Joel Rifkin, who was a serial killer. Same difference.
Okay, never heard of him. I've heard Ted Bundy. I thought you were going to say Ted Bundy.
No, Elaine, the female character, she's dating a man he's like a nice guy, but she keeps on trying to convince him to change his name the whole episode.
Gotcha.
And then he gets like a prize at a baseball game, and they announce his name in front of the whole city on television, and she's very embarrassed. And she keeps on saying, he's not the murderer.
So I want to meet these people, and I want them to announce, like, I'm not the murderer. Hi, my name's Jeffrey Dahmer here, David, and I'm not a serial killer. And then just find out about them. What do they do? Do they go to McDonald's? Do they get 9 or 6 nuggets? I just want to know what they're like. And I want to, meet people. So if you've got an absolutely fantastic name and you're named, if you're a Donald Trump out there, if you're a Vladimir Putin, if you're a Keir Starmer, call the show. You might be a contractor. You might work at McDonald's. You might work at KFC. You might be a carpenter, a plumber, but have the same name as the President of America. I mean, I cannot wait to speak to you.
All right. If you want to do that, you can email Tony at lastshow.pizza, me, David, at lastshow.pizza, or just leave a voicemail, 1-888-505-6644. That's 1-888-505-6644. Our line is open. We just don't always take your calls. What are you hoping to learn from these people? Like the modern inconvenience of having a name like that?
Well, it came actually from reality, and you made a joke of it earlier, but there's a restaurant in London, and there was a concierge, and I used to go there and meet him, and then one day I just said, oh, what's your name? His name was Adolf.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, it's a common name. Like one of the guys who was working on my house, his name was Adolfo. He was a Mexican guy, and, Adolfo's Adolf in Spanish, I think. I don't know.
But this guy was German, and he was like German called Adolf, and said it like that, not Adolfo or Adolf. He said it like Adolf, very proud of it, I guess, to the family name. And he was like my age, he was in mid-30s, 40s. So he was obviously, it wasn't like a really old name, but he was probably the same age as Hitler. And I just found it really strange. But he just like walked off a duck's back, and people would pick up the call, hi there, Adolf speaking. And it was just like so freaky. And then it always bugged me. And then I thought, well, actually, it's just the name. So, some people, but it's banned. Like, for example, you can't go to like cake shops and have like happy birthday Adolf Hitler. They just won't do it.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. The guy was a genocidal dictator. It's uncommon to name although here in the US, I don't think there's like, in some countries, there's restrictions on names.
There is restrictions. Absolutely. And some countries have got a list of names that you can do. Like you can't, like I know North Korea, 100%, they've got lists of haircuts you can have, but some Yeah, some Catholic countries.
No, I think Germany, maybe the Netherlands. Like, there's a bunch of European countries that only let you have selected names.
Correct, which is strange. But
couldn't you just when you get married, like you do a shotgun wedding, you go to Vegas and get married, come back home with the Nevada marriage certificate? Is it Nevada. Anyway, you could just go to another country, have your kid, name it whatever you want.
Gotcha.
And then come home to the Netherlands, and what are they going to do? That's what it says on the birth certificate.
I suppose, but it just persecutes the child. I mean, there were people I knew growing up who had names like chlamydia.
That can't be true.
Yeah, there was always the idiots, and because they didn't know, if you didn't know,
Tony, we're the idiots.
Chlamydia was oh my God, that's my friend gonorrhea. It sounds nice. If you didn't know the connotation between chlamydia or gonorrhea, or hey, here's little baby hepatitis, it sounds like Greek, doesn't it? You've got Hector, Caesar, Troy, hepatitis.
Yeah, no. Coming this season on hepatitis. It sounds very like I'm in the movie Gladiator, which I think they're making a new one. Why would you ever do that?
There was a new one. I was watching it last night, Gladiator 2. He comes back to life.
Oh, I thought you got through all of Netflix. Is there more?
Well, it wasn't. It's just come out, isn't it? Gladiator 2. He gets alive again. And I think there's a hippo in it, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, like they fight a hippo?
Correct. Yeah, because in the first one, he fought a lion. Do you remember tigers?
Yeah.
And I think Ridley Scott was like, oh, this is my next big budget. I want to fight a tiger or a rhino or something.
You can really now with CGI, it's gotten so good, you can really depict a lot of things that you could not depict back in the days of real special effects. You could do horrible things to animals that are extinct and easy peasy. Looks real these days.
But what do you feel about that? Do you feel that it's becoming more the fact that everybody can do everything, doesn't that make you feel like there's no real skill in it anymore? What makes you go, wow now?
Yeah, I was never wowed by oh my God, look at those special effects. Those are actual cars exploding. To me, an AI or a generative, whatever, CGI car exploding in a real one, it's the same thing for me. I'm just not... When action movies, when they happen, I don't care if they do their own stunts. That, I'm not one of these people.
Are you story-based then? Can you sit there and get engrossed in a film? Or are you sort of... I'm the sort of person, I can be fiddling about, going to different things and still process the movie, and which annoys people because when they say, let's watch a movie together, they want me to physically sit down.
What are you doing? Doing your dishes while the movie's on? You're making a chicken? You're knitting?
I'm on the computer, I'm playing on the phone, I'm sort of getting a drink from the fridge and I'm making a popcorn. I'm doing all these little things.
Yeah, no, that's awful. No one would ever want to watch a movie with you.
Everybody wants to watch a movie with me. I'm sure the listeners want to watch a movie with me. No one wants to watch it with you like a nerd. Oh, do you know what this is? 1994. I didn't like this CGI.
I hate you.
I know you do. But you love me really. But you hate me. But you love me. Do you remember when we first met? So, dear listener, we met many years ago. And I terrorized David. I wanted to wear his face. And for many years, his beloved told David to be wary of me. Never give him my number. Never come back to
Yes. You used to call into my radio show before we were friends and jokingly threaten me, and my girlfriend would tell me to stay away from you and keep you at arm's length and don't give you our home address. You wanted to mail me a postcard. I gave you the address of the radio station, not my house. Yeah, definitely. I do remember.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I love that. But anyway, if anybody does want a postcard, let me know. I'm quite happy to send postcards out to people.
You've actually sent our listeners tens of them, and that's a lot for us.
Yeah, I've sent, definitely about 25 postcards over the years, yeah.
And you're committing crimes against listeners who have given you their addresses for the purposes of mailing things. 0. You've committed 0 crimes against that group of people. So if, past is a good predictor of the future, you're unlikely to hurt anyone. So if you want a postcard from Tony at lastshow.pizza, is that your email address?
No idea. Never used email. No idea what it is.
Tony, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
David, always been a pleasure to be here. Bye-bye, everyone in the world.
I'm looking forward to playing Game the Name, the Fame with you. Did I say that right?
That's the one. It works out.
Tony 5 is our foreign correspondent out of London, England. After the break, we'll get up close and personal with our guest, sharing deep stories about addiction and sobriety, ones you might connect with. If not you, then I'm sure a loved one has struggled with substance abuse. So if you're curious about sobriety for yourself, want to know how you can help others, or just want to strap on for something real on the radio, you're not going to want to miss this.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Our guest, a sobriety expert who helps people navigate life without alcohol or drugs. Those who've struggled in the past. Whether you're curious, whether you're sober, whether you're somewhere in between, Kelly France is here, who's a sobriety expert and coach. His insights on this topic go deep. Let's learn about him. I myself, a sober alcoholic, am excited to chat about this. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, David. And congratulations on your own sobriety. That is amazing.
I know. I hit 5 years in September. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, that's so cool, dude. I'm so happy for you. I'm really happy to hear that.
I have a couple friends who are in a 12-step program for narcotics, which will remain anonymous. Several friends in a similar one for alcohol. I know people who work and lecture in this space. All of them, now I'm not saying this is a stereotype, have struggled themselves. And so my question for you is, you get into this field, you try to help people get sober, you work with communities. Is there a turning point in your life that led you to this career path?
It was a point where I was actually, so I've been sober for a while now. I'll be coming up to 14 years clean from, crack as well as alcohol and all the other nasty stuff. And there came a point in my life, I guess I was just around 9 years clean, where I was doing some construction and I had a nice business going, and I was spending my time doing that. And I thought to myself, it was actually, one day I was looking for my own coach and I found something online and I thought to myself, I think I'm wasting my God-given talent on construction and painting when I could actually be using my experience and my, speaking skills to help other people recover from addiction. And the one thing that I know about my own recovery is that people don't stay clean unless they get excited about their life. And I ran into too many people in various anonymous groups that only get clean and don't get all that excited about their future. And these are the ones that I saw go back out time after time. I thought to myself, if I could add that to my coaching, it's going to be on fire. And that was the turning point for me when I realized that people absolutely needed to be excited about their future if they were going to stay sober. And that's when I sort of caught fire for what I'm doing now, which is full-time recovery coaching.
In my personal experience, I observed something very similar to what you're saying. When I stopped drinking, I assumed my life would just be great. All my problems that led me to drinking and taking Xanax would go away. And I found myself kind of like even worse when I first cleaned up, because I'm like, oh, all these problems I'm running away from, all these problems I'm reaching for drugs and alcohol to avoid are still there. And that work of like working through those problems and getting reinvigorated with life and stripping away a lot of the stuff that was making my life not so great, that was sort of like you'd think that quitting was the beginning, but there was this second beginning of working on that. And so I know it's not quite what you said, but it's interesting that my experience, not coaching, not being in a community like that, was kind of similar. Do you find that across the board?
I find that across the board with people who actually take time to think about that and say, well, there is actually more after I get clean from the alcohol, this, that, and X, whatever it happens to be they're struggling with. Guys like yourself who have clearly built a great life for yourself since getting sober. I have definitely found that when people get clean, it's just the beginning. Sobriety becomes a tool for helping me accomplish the life that I actually want to accomplish. And the ones who don't see it that way, they don't tend to stick around. And those are the sad cases that I see that think they're okay just living an average or just below average life, but they know in their heart that they're capable of so much more, and they just don't go for it. So that internal storm that goes on, the disconnect between my head and my heart, knowing that I'm capable of so much more, but not going for it, that's what used to cause me to go back out and use crack and drink alcohol, because I just couldn't put that fire out. Taking that first step towards realizing that, okay, I'm sober. What's next? That's the game changer. And obviously it was for you as well.
Taking a step a little bit up looking at sobriety for those who don't know much about it or have a loved one who's struggling and don't really know about 12-step programs, don't really know about ways to kind of correct the course. What are some things that people get wrong about sobriety? Like things that people think is a common thing amongst those who quit drugs and alcohol that isn't really common at all?
I would say, for your question about what they get wrong, one of the things that I hear very often is the cliche, just take it one day at a time, which I completely understand that the only moment you and I have, David, is this one that we're speaking in right now. This is the only moment that's ever going to exist. So people will misinterpret that and say, look, I don't have to worry about tomorrow. I don't have to worry about the future. I'm fine. Just got to worry about today. And this is enough. What I say to that is, if I want to live free today, I need to be excited about tomorrow. I need to be setting goals for tomorrow, and I actually have to have a vision of where I want to go, and I should be working on it. And that's when one day at a time becomes a hell of a lot more enjoyable than just being clean today and not knowing where I am going to be tomorrow. And that's for me, that's the main thing I think that people get wrong, and they honestly sell themselves short. Like people like us, we didn't use the drugs and drink the excessive amounts of alcohol because we didn't want excitement. We wanted excitement. We wanted to get out of ourselves and experience things. That's why we did what we did. And so people, I wish everyone would realize that excitement and hope are the key to sobriety, and recreating what we got from the drugs and the alcohol is key if we want to live happy and free.
Here's something that might throw a curveball. I miss it, and I had a lot of shame around missing it for many years. Like, oh, I'm a bad person for wanting to drink. I'm a bad person for saying I love alcohol. I love the way it makes me feel. And I feel like that was a trap. It was a way to just feel sorry for myself and bad about myself. And this new frame that I've talked about a bit, like with my therapist and sometimes on the show, is like, forgive yourself for wanting it. What's important is not doing it and recognizing the negative effect it has on your life. And so when I say I like drinking to my girlfriend, she gets kind of uneasy as if I'm going to relapse, and I'm not. It's just me being kind of honest about it. That's another thing that I think people get wrong, that like when not for everybody, but for some people who get clean, that they'll somehow miss it, like not miss it. They'll never even want it again. For me, the frame is like, no, I want it, but I know what effect it's going to have on my life, and I don't want that.
I couldn't agree more. And when you say that, you're like, yes, having what was your favorite thing to drink, just out of curiosity?
Oh my God, gin. I miss gin.
Okay. Man, you're a real hipster. Okay. So you love it. You love gin. So drinking a bottle of gin is going to make you feel sensational for the next hour, right? But what you're saying is that what I think I'm getting is that you refuse to sacrifice what you have going for yourself right now and what is to come,
yes,
because you know exactly where it's going to lead you.
Yes.
Yeah, you miss it. And I can totally relate to that. And, I'm a former crack addict, cocaine addict, alcoholic. If I could choose anything, I would choose crack over anything. And honestly, if I use some right now, it would be the greatest feeling that I've had in the last 14 years because I haven't used it. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, like you, I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can go. I'm in New York City at the moment. Give me 10 minutes. But the thing is, everything that I have, everything that I want, everything that I've developed or designed for my future, I'm pretty much sacrificing that. So yes, I still get cravings too, even after almost 14 years of being clean. And I don't fault myself for that. I didn't put those cravings in there.
It's a trap to feel sorry for yourself, because then that can be used to justify bad behavior. I'm a bad person for wanting it, so I'll act out the bad behavior by doing it. It's like, no, forgive yourself for wanting it and recognize what effect it's going to have on your life and cut it out. Kelly, this conversation's been so good that it's just flown by. Where can people find out about you, especially if they're curious about sobriety for themselves or maybe their loved ones?
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, David. I really appreciated chatting with you as well. So yeah, I'm a coach. I work with people one-on-one, as well as I have a private community, and people can access all of that through my personal website, which is kellyfrance.com, which is just my name.com, and all my info's on there. My phone number's on there. If you want to give me a call, I would always be happy to speak to someone and just to hear what they got going on and see if there's any way I can help.
Kelly, thanks for joining me on the show.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.
Kelly France is a sobriety expert and coach. There's this widespread assumption that if you grew up in a rough neighborhood, you might have a negative outlook on the world. But that isn't the single biggest predictor on your worldview. It turns out the way your parents treat you, no matter your circumstances, that predicts a positive world belief. How does that work, and the study that came to that conclusion we'll cover in just a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Why do we have the outlook that we do? Why do we have the worldview that we do? Well, childhood parental warmth, or lack thereof, can inform it greatly. So how do we shape our world? A safe, good, full of possibility, or not so much? And why? We're here to discuss with Dr. Jennifer Lansford, who's the director of the Center for Child and Family Policy and a research professor at Duke University. Jennifer, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, primal world beliefs. What are they, and why do they matter so much for how we live our lives, how the world is shaped by our minds?
Primal world beliefs, or primals for short, are people's basic understanding of what kind of world we live in. So is the world safe? Is it dangerous? Is it dull or enticing? Is it progressing or getting worse? Those kinds of things are kind of what people think about the world in general.
I imagine, like, sometimes we think the world is more scary than it is. I've heard of something called the scary world belief. Like, you see some bad news in a country, and then you decide that that country is 100% unsafe. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about, or is it more kind of fundamental than that?
I think you've captured it well. So part of the question is, how do we develop these beliefs about what kind of world it is? So is it that people who grew up in dangerous neighborhoods come to see the world as being a dangerous place? Or is it something about people's temperament or personality, where some people are more likely to just view the world as dangerous, even in objectively safe circumstances? And so what we're trying to find out is how people come to have these beliefs that they hold about the world.
Common wisdom, and you touched upon it, I want to latch on to what you said. If you grew up in an impoverished area, a rough area, common wisdom would have you believe that person would think the world is unsafe. If you grew up in a cheery suburban neighborhood with no crime, you might think the world is a cheery suburban place. That's kind of the common wisdom, but there's maybe no good reason to think that, at least without study, and that's what you did. So when you started looking at it, what did you start finding?
Yeah, so we were a little bit surprised by the findings, because in a study that included people from 8 different countries, Colombia, Italy, Jordan, Kenya, the Philippines, Thailand, Sweden, and the United States, we found that it was really parents' warmth that they showed to children during childhood that were most directly predictive of young adults' beliefs about the world in general. So parents' warmth includes things like love and affection, parents being accepting of their children. Those are the kinds of things that make up parental warmth. And those things were much more important than the safety or danger of the neighborhood that people grew up in, than other types of parenting, kind of how controlling parents were, for example. Parental warmth was more important than socioeconomic factors like income, in terms of young adults' beliefs about the world in general.
So if a kid grows up surrounded by crime, even observing it, but has warm, loving parents, that kid is likely to see the world as a safe place? It does seem a little counterintuitive.
That's right. And so I think it really speaks to the importance of parents in shaping their children's worldviews. And that it's a hopeful message for parents, I think, because one way that parents can provide support to their kids, even in dangerous situations in the world, is by providing this loving, accepting home environment.
If my mom's listening, I feel like she should have hugged me more, maybe played Mahjong less. I'm kidding, of course. I love my mom. So warmth, it has a long-lasting influence on our worldview. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this is like this primary factor?
I think there are a few reasons. I mean, one is that warmth gives kids the message that that they're worthy of love in some ways, which can make them do better in future relationships. So kids who have been loved and accepted by their parents tend to have better peer relationships, tend to get along better with other adults, eventually with romantic partners. So these early parent-child relationships are important in shaping kids' views about themselves, as well as how they interact with other people in the world. And so all of those kind of future experiences can then also feed into people's worldview about the world being a good place, the world being a safe place. So I think that's one factor. I think it's also the case that a lot of how kids experience the world is through how their parents experience the world. So if kids are in a stressful environment, one of the main ways that it negatively affects kids is if their parents are more stressed out, and if it hurts parents' mental health and makes parents harsher with their kids. But if kids are in a stressful environment, but their parents are coping well with it, and the parents are not kind of passing that stress along to their kids, then that can be really protective for kids, because that parent-child relationship is really proximal to how children are growing up.
For parents listening who hopefully want their kids to grow up with a positive worldview, I know you spoke to it a little bit, but let's dig in a little bit deeper into what warmth looks like. Is it like hugs? Is it listening? Is it not yelling? What does it look like in daily life? I imagine it's all of the above, but maybe something more.
It is all of the above. And what's I think is really interesting about warmth is it can look different in different cultural contexts. So in some cultural contexts, parents commonly hug their kids or kiss their kids or say, "I love you." Those are very direct expressions of warmth. But it can also be more indirect ways. So it can involve preparing foods in a special way, or having some other special family tradition, to spend time doing something that the child enjoys. And it can involve providing educational opportunities for kids. And kids interpret what their parents are doing in broader cultural contexts. So kids also reference what other parents are doing and say, "Oh, my parent is kind of behaving in a way that's similar to my friend's parents, or not similar to how my friend's parents are behaving," and interpret parents' behaviors in that way. So I think that's also interesting to me, because it suggests that kids interpret their parents' behavior as being warm and loving in these contexts of kind of what other people in their community are doing to show love and support as well.
I loved my grandfather very much. I do miss him. But one thing I will say about him, he strongly believed in like tough love. He had this kind of philosophy that the world's a tough place and I got to treat you tough to toughen you up. This is a common parenting philosophy. I don't know how common it is, maybe falling a little bit out of fashion. Are there adverse effects from this, or is this maybe a good tool to use with your kids?
I think it depends on how you're showing tough love. So corporal punishment, like hitting kids, is bad for kids. So that's it, and that is kind of the opposite of showing warmth. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that. Other kinds of tough love, I think it would depend on how you define that. If it's making sure that kids have expectations for how they'll behave, and parents convey that in a way that is not punitive, but is just, straightforward. And, this is what I expect of you, and having high expectations, that's not harsh. It's just, kind of setting kids up for knowing what they're expected to do and how they're expected to behave.
Last thing, we already touched upon this, but if I want to raise a child who thinks the world is good and full of wonder, is there one important thing I can do as a parent today? Maybe one small change.
Loving and accepting your kid, finding what makes the child feel loved and accepted. And for different kids, that could be different things, but making sure that to be focused on supporting the child in the way that the child is going to feel that love.
Jennifer, I've appreciated the chat. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Dr. Jennifer Lansford is the director of the Center for Child and Family Policy and a research professor at Duke University. That's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As ever, the last show is available as a podcast for you to stream on demand, like if you missed some of tonight, or you won't catch us on a given night. Like maybe you didn't catch yesterday. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. And there you can find out details about our podcast, including how to subscribe. Well, I'm David Cooper, and it's not the first show, it's not the second show, but it is the last show. But it's not like the last show. We'll be back again.